Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Watch News Weekly. As always, not to forget, wrist check. I'm wearing the OG brick, the pounder. This thing literally is a half a pound of gold. This one's a little bit more special. It's got a tropical dial. This one will date back to probably late 90s. Came out in 92. This is an E-serial, so late 90s, maybe even early 2000s. Now, today, a few interesting topics, actually. First one being revolutionary innovation to the watch game, all right? So, Swiss brand Horage invented a way to regulate watches without opening the watch case. The innovation is called Micro Reg. It's designed to help mechanical watches reach zero deviations and remain in perfect precision. It's a quest that is everlasting for a multitude of companies. Think about Girard-Perregaux's Constant Escape, and think about Ulysse Nardin using silicone for the first time in their Freak, right? Because you have to deal with temperature, magnetism, gravity, and so much more for the watch to run accurately. Too many outside factors that will affect the mechanism, if you guys remember your physics lessons. Anyway, Micro Reg system is set to fix all that with a tiny actuator that actually attaches to the traditional escapement, right? Now, there's no electronic parts, right? Only a ceramic element and metal carrier. And the motor requires zero energy. It only comes to life when it's called upon. How is it called upon? Well, attach a device to the watch with a touch of a button. You can adjust the speed of the escapement by 0.01 seconds up or down. You can actually see this in action. Ian's going to pop in a video. And let's look at the device. Looks like a pregnancy test or a COVID test nowadays, right? Now, this thing is still a prototype. You can't really buy it yet. It's going to come out at about $8,000. Right now, you can pre-order something for $4,500. You can actually support them by donating 150 Swiss or something. That will give you in turn a $300 certificate to then later use for purchase if you choose so. If not, you're just supporting the brand. Now, I am going to go as far as tell you this. No, this isn't the first time this has been done. And this has been done in a bit of a gadgety way for me, right? Because here you have this electric device that hooks up and sends electromagnetic pulses for that thing to start basically moving and adjusting the spring. I'm going to go back to 2013 or 14, I don't remember exactly. 𝗙𝗰𝗲𝗄𝗃, EMC. They're the ones that actually did this already more than 10 years ago, but they did it in a much grander fashion. If you look at the EMC watch, what that does is exactly that. It can also adjust timing. The whole shtick with this entire thing is that you don't have to take your watch to a watchmaker to adjust it, right? And we look in the back of our watches and we always see that little adjuster that we can never get to, and you got to take it to a watchmaker to adjust. What this watch didn't achieve is what 𝗙𝗰𝗲 achieved more than 10 years ago, which was extremely innovative, still is innovative till this day, because that's what 𝗙𝗰𝗲 is known for. Let's throw the watch up on the screen real quick, and let me tell you something. First of all, the time is actually shown in the back. You can't tell the time in the front, which to me kind of defeats the purpose, which makes it feel even more gadgety. But to go back to 𝗙𝗰𝗲, yeah, they were the first ones to actually come up with this, but in a much bigger way. And the reason for that, the one thing that's missing here is the fact that, hey, what shows you that the timing is off on your watch? Outside of saying, oh, my watch has been running a couple of seconds slow a day, let me adjust it, right? Well, 𝗙𝗰𝗲 took it to a different level. They literally integrated this device called 𝗴𝗍𝗂𝗽, right? This is a watchmaker's best friend. That's a device that's going to measure the timing of the watch, right? Well, how do you do that? They literally have an optical sensor, right, that's sitting on top of the mainspring that will literally measure the 28,800 VPH over 3 seconds and telling you how much your watch is on or off. There's also a 60 million hertz oscillator that's included into that watch that gives the watch the baseline, because what is it off of, right? So it has to have a baseline, if you will. And yes, there is electronic parts in this watch, but they're not really electronic because the electricity comes from cranking the little microcomputer that's in there that allows you to do all of that. It came from a company called Maxon, and these guys made shit for like Mars rovers. Like, this is pretty badass technology. So in my opinion, this is a cool gadget that comes with a pregnancy test or COVID test, if you will, where the real innovators, the real people that actually made this happen were 𝗙𝗰𝗲 with their EMC watch, because it doesn't just allow you to adjust the movement without taking it to a watchmaker. And we'll throw some pictures up. I'll show you the diagram how the 𝗙𝗰𝗲 EMC works. But it actually measures it for you. You can literally take your watch, depress a button, have it measure, show you how much it's off, and actually go and adjust the stuff yourself. That's innovation. And I'm not knocking this watch. It's a cool gadget. That's how I would look at it. Let's go to the next piece of news, and that's Heuer coming out with a split-second chronograph for $138,000. Now, most of you will think, Heuer, $138,000? What? Are you guys nuts? And According to 𝗙𝗃𝗧, they're sold out, all right? In 2020, they tapped Cartier's directors of movements, Kari Voutilainen Celebrates, and I know I'm mangling that name, and she's quoted as saying, the Rattrapante for me is the queen of chronograph complications. I will agree with that. But since then, she has released one of the better looking and more complicated Carrera. The 𝗙𝗃𝗧 Monaco split-second chronograph is an extraordinary feat in adding challenging and expensive complications to the 𝗙𝗃𝗧 lineup. For you guys that are just going to say, oh, it's just a chronograph, it's not just a chronograph, it's a Rattrapante, it's a split-second chronograph. Split-second chronographs is one of the most complicated things to execute in the world of horology. You guys are going to think tourbillon, minute repeater. It's just up there, if not more complicated, to create your own chronograph, especially a split-second chronograph. It's sort of like a sapphire sandwich, right? Sapphire case back, an avant-garde feel, if you will, developed with a 𝗙𝗍𝗲 movement, a company that produces stuff for Richard Mille from Audemars Piguet. They're part of that Parmigiani group, right? I talked about the news of the Parmigiani group going up on a block for sale, and I think most that are looking at it, they're specifically mostly interested in 𝗙𝗍𝗲 outside of everything else, even the Parmigiani watches themselves. And this is what a little bit of controversy comes in for me, right? It's like, you guys are gonna come out with a badass watch, pricing it at $138,000 for a split-second chronograph. Perhaps Patek prices their split-second chronographs even higher, upwards of $400,000, right? Now, here's where a little bit of a question mark comes in for me. You're using 𝗙𝗍𝗲 movements, right? I kind of know what the cost on those would be from 𝗙𝗍𝗲. You're pricing the watch at $138,000. Now, $138,000 for a split-second chronograph may not sound as taboo to an average Patek collector, where their chronographs, split-second chronographs, can retail upwards of $500,000. There are other brands out there that make split-second chronographs that are a lot cheaper. Guys like IWC, for example, right? How do you come up with that price? And how do you come out there and say they're all sold out? What is the definition of sold out? So I think it's a bit taboo for 𝗙𝗃𝗧 to price their watch at $138,000 to begin with, considering the price range that they play in. Where do you come up with the sold out part, right? How do you define sold out? You're 𝗙𝗃𝗧. You have a ton of authorized dealers out there. You have a lot of doors out there that you serve. And you say to them, well, if the authorized dealers picked up the allocation, does that mean that watch is sold out? No. To me, a watch being sold or sold out is when I see however many they made on people's wrists. To me, that means sold out. And unfortunately, at that price tag, if somebody came to me tomorrow on a secondary and said, hey, I bought this watch and I'd like to sell it, I would say, you're f***ed, because I don't know where the resale value goes and how much people out on the market will value a 𝗙𝗃𝗧 split-second chronograph versus its regular Monaco chronograph. And that price tag is just, oof, I don't know. Perhaps a marketing stunt that will work. I remember Richard Mille back in the day did that one time where they raised their prices by like 40% in 1 year and everybody laughed at them. Well, look at where they are now. Perhaps this is something leading up to the Formula One sponsorship from LVMH. Perhaps it's going to be 𝗙𝗃𝗧 sitting where Rolex used to sit. I don't know. I'm not going to knock the design. Look at the watch. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love the 𝗙𝗃𝗧 Monaco to begin with, back down to its original roots. I think they did a tremendous job on the case design, the sapphire stuff. And I'm not going to knock the movement because I know 𝗙𝗍𝗲 makes a hell of a movement, especially the split-second chronograph. But I just don't understand the $138,000 price tag. You guys comment below, let me know what you think, and let's go to the next topic. Kari Voutilainen. Kari Voutilainen, oh my God. Again, let's talk about his story a little bit. And like all good stories, his started with a pocket watch. He was employed at Parmigiani. He worked tirelessly after hours on his first ever watch, and he chose to create a pocket watch, right? Took 3 years to complete. In '84, Voutilainen created a 1-minute tourbillon pocket watch in the style of Breguet. And rightfully so. If you're going to go tourbillon, if you're going to go pocket watch, you most definitely go Breguet style, right? It took him 10 years for his own brand to be born, and it's now come full circle with this 20th anniversary 1-minute tourbillon watch, right? He opened up his company in 2004. So he made 61 pieces, 20 in platinum, 20 white gold, 20 in rose gold, and 1 in stainless steel, with prices varying from 270 to 280 Swiss. Now the dial draws from his original pocket watch design with charming off-center display. Over the last 20 years, Voutilainen created masterpieces ranging from perpetual calendars to chiming bezel rotated minute repeaters, chronographs, just to name a few. And the longer you look, the more you'll notice the galoche dials, the silver accents, offset hands, gold movements, and so much more. Dual barrel, 72-hour power reserve, and of course a 1-minute Tourbillon beating at 18,000. It's one of those watches where you look at them and it's like, you look at the dials and you say, 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗯𝗏. You look at the watch itself and the way everything is done, you say 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗃. So I think he did a tremendous job in doing this. I have no doubt that the true watch collectors out there that have followed Kari Voutilainen's career over time will gladly pick these up if they're actually even going to be made available. Pretty sure a lot of these will be spoken for simply because Voutilainen has a very niche, small following, much like all these independent watchmakers. And looking at the back of the watch, I mean, again, the finishes, the tourbillon itself, everything about this is just top notch. So any independent watch collector out there would die for one of these if they're playing in that price range. At a first glance, looking at it, it's like, well, why the tourbillon? Show us the tourbillon. But if you look at the original picture of the pocket watch, you'll see why. It's really very much resonates with the very first watch he made. And again, the type of clients that buy these type of watches are not the type to flex, so they don't need to show off their tourbillon. You know, Patek doesn't show their tourbillon. Panerai tried it a couple times, didn't work out really well for them. They started showing it. But I agree with keeping it with the legacy that he has created over the last 20 years, keeping it true to the original design of the pocket watch. Personally, I would love one of these. Let's go to the next piece of news, and that's going to be another rainbow watch, but a bit of a surprise this time. It's coming from Timex. And took them long enough, but you know, everybody and their mother has jumped on the rainbow bandwagon, as if you will, since the Rolex Rainbow came out. Not to say that there weren't pieces made prior with colorful stones or a rainbow-like motifs, but really went mainstream and really set a trend with the Rainbow Daytona. And since then, we've seen everybody do it. We've seen everybody and their mother name a brand. They've already done it. And finally, Timex decides to join the Rainbow Revolution. For only $169, Timex will put you into a bejeweled watch with rainbow-colored gems, that of the likes of 𝗴𝗄𝗆, Hublot, and Rolex. No, they're not. These Australian crystals appear in the rainbow of color in the bezel, complemented with faceted crystal hour markers. Obviously, 3 sub-dial watch. An extremely cheap alternative to the hard-to-find Rainbow Daytona as it's marketed. It's also an extremely ugly watch. If you're going to do this, no. I'm sorry. It's just no. It's like giving it a feeling of a cheap knockoff. If you're already going to do these crystals, if you're already going to do a rainbow bezel, don't give me tiny stones. In the very least, use the same cut stones you have on a dial and put it together in the likes of a rainbow piece from Rolex, Hublot, 𝗴𝗆𝗆, or whomever. Number one, it wouldn't cost you much more because those crystals cost nothing. Their total cost on this watch, considering it's $169 retail, somewhere around the $25 to $30 price range. So they could have added that. Don't give me a Rolex Jubilee bracelet either. Just, it will sell though. I know it will sell because it's affordable, and this could be a flex for someone, but somebody like myself, I'm not knocking the idea, I'm not knocking the fact that they made a rainbow watch. I'm perfectly fine with that, but if you're going to do it a little bit better. And Timex is a huge company, they have a lot of money. Whoever designed this should have for a second said, well, wait a minute, I'm making a rainbow timepiece. Why don't I just already make a rainbow timepiece? Give me a baguette crystal bezel, if you will. Obviously, this is much cheaper to make and much easier to make, but a baguette bezel would do fine, and then I would ease up on the markers. Those markers are way too fat. It just doesn't work. Guys, next time you design something, just call me. I'll help you out, really, no problem. Last piece of news, obviously we're talking about the Olympics, and obviously 𝗙𝗏𝗃 brings the torch from Paris to your wrist. I'm sure you guys have been watching the games in Paris. It's impossible not to notice 𝗙𝗏𝗃 plastered everywhere, right? So, official timekeeper of the Summer Games, and they came out with a vintage-inspired piece, right? The 𝗙𝗏𝗃 Paris 2024 Bronze Gold Edition. I love how companies just name their golds every which way to make it sound more special, but this actually kind of makes sense, right? The watch itself has touches of gold, silver, and bronze, right? Obviously, to hone in on an Olympic vibe. It was inspired by the 𝗙𝗏𝗃 CK859 back from 1938 in true 𝗙𝗏𝗃 form. Now, the case back features the Olympic Games medallion inscribed BG859 in reference to the bronze gold case materials from the Seamaster 300 collection. Now, the dial, of course, is made out of 925 silver. At the center of the silver dial is the classic 𝗙𝗏𝗃 decorations a la the Summer Games, right? And the gold, well, is found in the hands made of Sedna gold, right? So you have silver, you have bronze, and you have the hands that are made out of Sedna gold. And paired with a classic brown calfskin, leather strap, and bronze gold buckle, retail $12,000. Now, why is it so much cheaper? It's because of the amount of bronze in that gold. There's more bronze than there is gold in that case, so not as much gold in there. Technically, it's more bronze than it is gold, but it do hit all the points. And you know what? They did a wonderful job. I think that anytime they do any Olympic watches that Omega has done in the past, I've always loved. I've always thought it was tying yourself to an event such as the Olympics is an amazing thing. And considering that Omega has been part of the Olympics for so many years, it's only fitting that they do this year, well, I shouldn't say year in, year out, but Olympics in, Olympics out, rather. And super clean watch, doesn't break the bank. I think this thing is going to be a hit. I think this thing is already a hit. And just such a classy, vintagey dress, yet sports-looking watch that I cannot not see somebody not wanting to walk into a boutique and buy this. Listen, time will show in terms of resale value. Time will show how well these do. My call is that this watch does well, and I think this watch does very well. Due to the design and due to the price tag of $12,000, which I think is very inexpensive for this particular creation. With that said, guys, that's all I got for you this week. Quickly run through some of the stuff that's out there with you. Throughout the week, feel free to shoot me a DM with a link to an article that you think is worthy of discussing on Watch News Weekly, and I'll gladly put in my 5 cents on the topic. Other than that, as always, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.